Trauma affects almost everybody in the United States today, some more serious than others. Everybody remembers that scary movie that they saw when they were younger that still comes to mind from time to time. That is a form of trauma. I am currently in an English 1 class here at CHEVALIER where all of our readings and writings are based upon trauma and specifically intergenerational trauma. Intergenerational trauma is a very common form of trauma and people should be more aware of what it is and how to stay away from it. Now, I will be talking about what intergenerational trauma is, what causes it to be formed, and some ways to cure trauma in order to prevent it. Before we can talk about intergenerational trauma, we must know what trauma is. According to Rebecca J. Frey, trauma is damage to the mind and emotions resulting from a single event or a series of events to overwhelm a person's ability to cope or integrate the memories and feelings associated with the traumatic event. Trauma is often a result of an overwhelming amount of stress that is caused by a certain event or a series of events. Now that everybody knows what trauma is, we can now talk about intergenerational trauma and what exactly it is. Intergenerational trauma is the passing down of trauma from generation to generation. So what does that mean? It means that you inherit the same trauma that your parents have, whether it was passed down from the generation before them or a traumatic experience they have been through. This can be things that run in the family, such as health problems, substance abuse, violence, mental health, and other things that are shown in this picture. Intergenerational trauma is a very common form of trauma, and it comes up often when talking about trauma in individuals. Now that I've talked about what intergenerational trauma is, I will be now talking about what causes it to be formed. Intergenerational trauma is caused by trauma that is yet to be healed, causing it to be passed down until it is eventually cured. According to Resma Menachem, uncured trauma can alter DNA patterns before a child is even born. This altered DNA can result in the child being born with the same trauma that either the mother, father, or both haven't shared. According to Matthew J. Bailiff, trauma can impair a child's ability to form appropriate attachments with caregivers and peers, control impulsivity, control aggression and self-destructive behaviors, and maintain appropriate self-esteem. Trauma can be passed down through DNA, but it can also be passed from body to body. Intergenerational trauma can also be formed through relationships with others. People can hinder your view on certain events, sometimes even passing their own trauma onto you. For instance, if somebody told you about a life-threatening car accident they got into, it might cause some trauma next time you go to drive. Both the passing of trauma through DNA and body to body are simple ways that trauma can be passed down. Now that I've talked about what causes intergenerational trauma to be formed, I will now talk about some ways to cure trauma in order to prevent intergenerational trauma from happening. Relaxation is key when trying to heal and get rid of trauma. Meditation, deep breathing exercises, massages, and yoga are all relaxation methods that are recommended to do during the trauma recovery process. All of these methods have something similar in common. They help keep your mind from wandering off, keeping you focused on certain aspects of your body. All of the relaxation methods mentioned are simple and can be practiced almost everywhere. Exercise also plays a huge role in the recovery process. Those who exercise daily are shown to have a more positive image of themselves, which is important when trying to recover. Exercises such as walking, running, and weightlifting help assist the body in releasing muscular patterns of stress, tension, and trauma. Both of these ways help get rid of trauma as well as prevent the trauma from being passed down to the following generation. Now that I've talked about my 3 main points, I would like to review what I've just informed you all on. I've talked about what intergenerational trauma is, how it is formed, and ways to prevent it. Intergenerational trauma is a very common form of trauma, and people should be more aware of what it is and how they can stay away from it. Trauma affects almost everybody in the United States, and if it affects you, make sure you take the proper steps to cure it so it won't be passed down. Thank you.